Okay, we're here. Final chapter, chapter 14 of my book, The Crimson Thread. Get right into it. Evening was descending, and, as the Passover recognized by most of the Jews was about to begin, Pilate had agreed to order the guards to break the legs of the criminals so that they would die quickly. One Roman took a large beam and broke Benjamin's legs and then Samuel's. The men, already near death as a result of their serious injuries and no longer able to hold themselves up, immediately began to suffocate. The soldier with the beam then approached Joses. He was about to do the same when it appeared to him that the man was already dead. Joses had arrived at the place of execution almost dead from his scourging anyway. It was no surprise that the additional extremes of the crucifixion would kill him so fast. For some unknown reason, the Roman did not feel it advantageous to break the legs of a corpse. He threw down the beam and took a lance, driving it deep into Joses' side, up into his heart. He turned away, satisfied that his work was done. Once the other two criminals were obviously dead, the soldiers made their way from Golgotha and headed toward the city. Joseph of Arimathea had arranged for the body, and none of the Romans, not even Pilate, thought it of any concern that Joses' immediate family would risk exposure at the site of the execution. Joseph of Arimathea, Miriam, Joses' sister Salome, and a physician from the Damascus Therapeutate, along with several others, arrived at the base of the stakes. Working quickly, they pulled the nails from Joses' feet, the one wrist and then the other. Joses' body was lowered carefully by the use of a large linen cloth. The wounds from the scourging and the crucifixion were massive. Even if he had survived the crucifixion, he would have succumbed to the injuries and infections already taking hold upon his weakened body. There had been that remote hope that they could revive him, but as the physician examined him and tried to administer resuscitation, it was obvious that nothing could bring Joses back. He was dead. Miriam held him and cried, her heart wrenching for him, and she tore her garment in her grief. Back in Jerusalem, Jacob had paused to speak to a group of Jews and members of the community assembled together about him as he descended the steps of the temple where he had gone to meditate and pray. Jacob stopped and looked around as the people began to press closer to him. They were all asking him what should be done about the cruelty of the Herodians and the Romans in killing Joses. While constantly assailing their opponents, Jacob could not escape the guilt he felt personally. He could see that the crowd felt no culpability of their own. He stopped and stood motionless and thought. The people, seeing him in such a state, quieted themselves, anticipating his words. After a few moments of reflection, Jacob looked up and examined the faces of the people about him. Hear me out, O brothers of ours, house of Israel. Lo, it says, when a corpse is found, and your elders and judges go forth and measure, now as it is to us, whither and whence shall we measure? To the sanctuary, or to the courtyard? The sharpness and truth of his words penetrated every soul there. Some began to weep, others groaned and sat upon the ground, rending and tipping their clothes in the customary fashion of the Jews, all realizing their mistakes in not supporting Joses and yet understanding that he sacrificed himself to ensure their protection and mission. What Jacob was quoting was a requirement from Devarim, Deuteronomy 21, 1-9, that when a body is found and murder is suspected, the elders of the city about it measure to find their distance from it. The town closest to it must take the responsibility for the crime. Jacob was saying that he and everyone else had failed Joses. Miriam and Salome prepared Joses' body for burial. The execution of Joses on the day of the community's recognized Passover, with its accompanying Sabbath the next day, made the entire ordeal even more agonizing and repulsive. Despite strict rules against such situations, the group had no other choice but to carry on. They, with the assistance of Joseph, the physician Nicodemus Ben-Gurion, and Yochanan, carried Joses in a litter to a temporary burial place at night, as night was approaching and there was not time to complete any other necessary requirements. The body was prepared with several spices and cleaning substances to ensure that it would be well enough preserved until they could later complete the burial ritual. They would then transport the body to the permanent burial tomb prepared by Joseph. The place was not far from the tombs in Hebron of Jacob and Joseph, the Hebrew patriarchs. Joses' body was placed in the temporary crypt and the stone rolled into place. The party would return immediately on the morning after their Sabbath ended the next night to complete the preparation and transport the body to Hebron. The night after the completion of the community Sabbath, Jacob and several of Joses' followers discussed how they should proceed. The community elders now fully recognized that Joses had actually stood for and accomplished. Jacob, for certain, would be a successor not only because of his position as the teacher of righteousness, but because Jacob recognized the declaration by Joseph, getting tired here, sorry, Joseph, that Jacob would stand in his place at his death. This act would require a vote by the assembled councils, however, and that would be weeks away. But in the meantime, they laid out the general particulars of administration. Jacob would take over Joseph's position, but work from Damascus and Jerusalem. Kepha would continue his efforts with the diaspora Jews that Joseph had him contact, as well as all of Galilee and Samaria. They believed they could be successful in the resistance and would start planning after the family of Joseph was safely out of Judea. Also of importance was what to do with the body of Joseph. To leave it near Jerusalem would allow the Romans and Herodians to desecrate it or not allow it to be moved to its appropriate burial site in Hebron and the patriarchs of old. Also, there were several severely extremist zealots who could not allow the community brethren to fail to act. They also had an interest in ensuring that the Romans and the Herodians did not display the body of Joseph, with the desire for zealot martyrs, they needed an example of a resurrection to life of the great leaders so that those normally willing to die may sacrifice themselves for the chance at a resurrection. These likely would attempt to remove the body as well. Despite the difficulties, the burial party of Miriam, Salome, Arimathea, and Jochanan decided to wait another day, as they did not want to be seen as if they were violating the regularly recognized Orthodox Sabbath. It would not be wise to be accused of violating the Torah, especially with tensions as high as they were now with the Herodian administration. So they waited and agreed to return to complete their duties and finish preparing Joseph's body nearly 3 days after Joseph's crucifixion. For Miriam, Joseph's body would need to remain where it was for another day, until the first day of the week. As the children and Martha were safe on the ship ready to sail, Miriam decided to stay with Salome, Jochanan, and the family near Jerusalem so she could return to the sepulchre on the first day of the week. On the morning of the first day of the week, just before sunrise, Miriam and the burial party went to the tomb under the cover of darkness so as to hinder detection of their activities. However, when they entered the tomb, they were startled to find 2 men dressed in white linen garments, the same type worn by those of the more extreme zealots, who appeared to be finishing some tasks and were preparing to leave. Most distressing was that Joseph's body was gone. "Where have you taken him?" demanded Miriam. "What have you done with him?" The men looked at each other, and Miriam could detect that they had a full knowledge of what had happened. She pressed them further, now Salome and Jochanan also demanding answers. "He is not here," one of the men said as he pointed out the sepulchre. "He has gone to Galilee." "Gone to Galilee?" asked Jochanan rhetorically. His anger swelled in him, and he placed his hand on his sicker. "You are not going to use this for your own purposes. We know very well who would use his death to gain more followers against Rome. But these things cannot work. Even Joseph said that. He would not approve of your methods nor sanction your cause. His body belongs to his family and to Hashem. Return it to us or prepare to meet the dust." The 2 men backed away out of the tomb. Jochanan started to pursue them, but he realized he could not leave Miriam, Salome, and the elderly Joseph of Arimathea alone. He watched as the men disappeared over the next rise and out of sight. He returned quickly to Miriam's side. Miriam was bereft. After all Joseph and she had gone through, now she was robbed of the very last right of a wife and queen. Despondently, she turned and left the tomb and motioned for the others to follow her. They all hurried to a home not far away, where several of the followers of Joseph were just arising from their sleep. "He is gone," Miriam said to the group as she burst into the main room. "What do you mean he is gone?" asked Kepha, who had returned to Jerusalem after sending the family off to the coast under guard. He saw that she was beside herself. "Joseph, he is not in the tomb," Miriam said with a sudden resolve. It came to her that her duties were over as far as the burial was concerned. She needed to get to the ship and ensure the escape and survival of the rest of the family, especially the children. "He has gone to Galilee," she said softly. She turned to Salome and Jochanan and then back to Kepha. "We are leaving for the ship. It is time for us to depart. Will you do all you can for my husband?" "The tomb is empty?" Kepha asked her as she walked out the door. "He is gone," answered Miriam. "Go see for yourself." Kepha immediately started towards the area of the temporary tomb. Nathaniel Bar Talmai followed closely behind him. "I told you that they would take the body and claim Hashem resurrected him so others would fight on," Nathaniel Bar Talmai said as he followed Kepha out the door. "Go to the ship and wait for me," Kepha called to Miriam. "I need to see for myself, then I can assist in helping you to depart." Miriam waved to him as he started to run. She walked out the door and headed west to the waiting vessel. Yochanan did not follow Miriam out the door. "Are you coming, Yochanan?" asked Miriam. "It seems as though my place is here to do whatever is in my power," answered Yochanan. "What is important is that father's heirs remain free. Let me remain and do as is needed. It is what Hashem would want me to do." "But your mother needs you," answered Miriam. "Go to her and discuss it with her before you make your final decision. Tell my mother that her son loves her. Tell her that it is father's business that concerns me. If possible, we will meet again later." Yochanan was adamant. Miriam could see his desires. "Very well," Miriam said to him. "Your father would be proud of you, and you will certainly lend a great deal to the resistance and to Israel. May we meet again in the mansions of Hashem. Please let Eliezer know that all has transpired and that we have left as planned." Miriam hugged him and then turned and walked westward. Miriam, Salome, and Joseph of Arimathea began their journey to ensure the survival of Moses' heirs. Their sailboat was on the shore of the Mediterranean Sea, less than a day's journey from Jerusalem. Awaiting them were Martha, Moses' mother Miriam, and Moses' children. Word was already circulating that Caiaphas had sent his guards to find any members of the immediate family. In all likelihood, Herod would see to it that, as Galileans, they would be executed for some charge of sedition against Rome and, as with the Hasmoneans, eliminated from all affairs in Palestine. It would be up to those who were staying behind to carry on the resistance until Moses' sons could stand in their father's place. As the family knew, Rome would answer that resistance with more violence. Jude, Jacob, Kepha, Eliezer, and Yochanan would carry on the fight. But what none of them knew was that Caesar was already designing a strategy he would soon employ. It was a plan even darker and more sinister than violence. The emperor was preparing a scheme of diabolic proportions to change the religion and hopes of the Jews that would also subdue their will to resist. The war with Caesar was only beginning. As the ship made way from the coast of Judea and sailed west, the voyagers all gathered on the back of the deck to bid farewell. Miriam looked back at her homeland, now slowly drawing away into the distance. True to what Moses had told her, Hashem was again sending the Holy Seed into the world for his own purposes. Miriam understood her duties, and she would impart her knowledge to her sons and guide them in attaining the gifts of their father. She looked at her oldest, Joseph, who was now so like Moses when she met him for the first time. Joshua, too, was looking more mature at this moment than any boy his age should. Together they would be the key to the renewal of Israel. The boys arose and stood by their mother. As they faced the land to the east, the wind from the sea blew their hair in their eyes, partially obscuring their vision. Then, as if Moses' spirit voice instructed them, they all turned at the same time to look out over the Mediterranean to the west, the shifting wind blowing their hair away from their faces. Their vision was now clear. Neither Rome, Herod, nor Caiaphas ever imagined that they would leave their beloved country. The thought never occurred to them that the family would depart the land of their birth and heritage to seek a new land for the lost king, the heir of the crimson thread. The end. Wow. I started stumbling there. I said in my live stream today that I was going to record these tomorrow. It's actually still Sunday night. So I decided to do this. So it's been a long day. So sorry I stumbled around a lot. Plus my mouth got really dry. So we'll look forward to having a live stream discussion on this so we can use the chat. Pardon me. I don't know how the narrators, readers of books do it. Those audible books, audio books, I don't know how they do it. I guess they don't do it in a rush. I guess they have a methodical approach to it where they practice, maybe 5, 6, 10 paragraphs or whatever it is, get it down, and they probably don't do it all at once the way I am. It's probably not done that way at all. Okay. Thanks for putting up with all this. 14 chapters. It was a lot of information covered, a lot of things different than you would normally expect. But remember, I looked at this from an historical perspective. not faith-based. We're inundated with the faith-based part, and I'm not saying it isn't true. What I've tried to do is return this to its historical origins and, most importantly, to the cultural Jewish Israelite customs of the day. Out here for now.